Good morning. This morning I have a Lally Johnson as a special guest, and thank you very much for joining, Lally.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
It's the still 9th of March, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and March 10th, the 7 a.m. in the morning in Tokyo. We just had a sun. It's quite cloudy. Please subscribe and like my video. Usually speak in Japanese, but I might include some English video. So Lally, it's such an honor to have you on my channel. I must say there are lots of fans in Japan too.
Oh, I'm glad. I'm happy to hear that. It's one of the joys of the internet. You make more friends around the world.
Yes, that's true. So today, let's start from Iran. World situation, and then the Middle East, the regional war. Then finally, I'm hoping that we get to Russia and Ukraine part. I've got almost like 1 hour from you.
Okay.
It's okay. So it has been 10 days past.
Yeah.
Already since the first attack on 28th of February. Will it be a long war? And if so, how long? Because, we rely on a lot of energy through Strait of Hormuz. And it would be a crucial issue for us in Japan. But maybe GCC might be in a danger first.
Well, the GCC is already in danger, as is Japan and South Korea, at least from an energy standpoint. I mean, my understanding is Japan has 200 days of reserves in oil. So from that standpoint, you're not going to be in any immediate danger. But I anticipate that this war with Russia and Israel will go on for a minimum of 6 months. I think it's going to be, so we're March, we'd be looking going into September and maybe beyond that, unless Donald Trump makes concessions that Iran is going to demand. And what are those concessions or demands of the Iranians? I think they're going to demand that all economic sanctions on Iran be lifted and lifted immediately. That U.S. military abandon the Gulf, get out of the Gulf so that they no longer pose a threat to Iran. And possibly they may extend it to say that Israel must withdraw and allow Palestinians unfettered access to Gaza, at least from the south. Now, are the United States and Israel willing to accept that? Well, maybe not, except by blocking the Strait of Hormuz, Iran has acquired leverage over the world economy. And if when you got that kind of leverage, people are going to be calling you up saying, hey, you got to give this up or else what? What's the world going to do? You're going to send a naval fleet there to try to force the strait open. They're going to get sunk. The one or two will get sunk, and they're not going to be able to obliterate the defensive positions that the Iranians have there on the shore. So I think Iran's in a very strong position to exercise leverage over the West. And, it's going to have a dramatic negative economic effect on Japan. And the same on South Korea. So, the leaders of both countries are going to be speaking out and putting pressure on Trump to, hey, stop this, bring this to an end.
Well, our Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, they are doing the opposite. They are actually spoken to the, I think, Alachi yesterday. And it seems like they asked Iranian to stop the war instead of the talking to U.S. president. Because, we are just puppet country, to be honest. We are really not independent country. We can't really speak up to Americans. That's the reality we have here. So,
I fully understand. And Iran is just, they're going to say, they probably told the Japanese foreign minister, sorry, you got the wrong number here. You need to call Washington. You need to call Jerusalem.
Yes. So I'm very surprised to hear that minimum the 6 months that it's going to be. Just so that you know, we may have 254 days of the oil in reserve, even though that's actually 3 different how do I say kind of the reserve, and it have to be agreed by what was the name, the was it ETA, something like that. And then meaning United States have to give those reserves to Japan. That's the reality we have. It's not like we physically have those reserves in the country. So 6 months is actually quite risky for us, just so that you know. I'd like to talk about the actual war here. So US start attacking about 10 days ago, and what are the US military casualties?
They're much higher than being reported.
Isn't it?
Yeah, there's the Landstuhl Regional Medical Center in Germany, which is northwest of Stuttgart. And then it is the primary military hospital for casualties. On March 4th, 4 days ago, the hospital administrator sent out a memo to the military community. And the military community, there's a base 13 miles east of Landstuhl called Kaiserslautern. So Kaiserslautern is with the U.S. forces, and all of the pregnant women who were ready to give birth were told, hey, remember those the OBGYN services we provided at the hospital? Well, it's closed now. We're not doing that anymore. We have to focus on our primary mission, which is what? Which is handling casualties. So they were being overwhelmed with casualties coming out of this attack that started, Iran's response to the U.S. and Israeli attacks. Similarly, at that base in Kaiserslautern, they put out a plea for, we need blood. We need people to come in and donate blood. So that tells you there are a lot of casualties.
Yeah, it seems like US side is really hiding the numbers of people either dying or injured.
Yeah.
Is that normal?
No, it's not. I mean, the reason they're hiding it is because it's going to create some political problems for Donald Trump. So they're going to try to delay it as long as possible.
That's just so bad. So I think Washington Post has recently posted that US military has been put out on high alert for a possible ground operation. The boots on ground, also Kurdish said no to Trump, isn't it? The boots on ground doesn't sound really realistic. The geopolitics, not geometric.
No. Geographic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. No. This is crazy idea. Just having a small military unit on the ground doesn't change anything, and to actually have a large enough force to go on the ground to make a difference means right now the United States has about 500,000 soldiers, a little less. They'd need 1.5 million at least if they're going to go into the ground seriously to try to take control of Iran. Actually, they'd need more than that. They'd need more like 3 million because Iran's got 1 million soldiers. So you want to have a 3-to-1 advantage. So this is not going to happen. Trump is already, Trump is trying to, he realizes he's screwed up and they're trying to get out. The U.S. initiated a phone call with Vladimir Putin today to say, hey, Vladimir, how you doing, buddy? Hey, let's talk to you about this Iran thing. Think you can help us get out? And there's limits to what Iran's going to be able to do because what Russia can do with Iran, because Iran's going to turn around and say, hey, we've been attacked, and what guarantee are you going to give us that we're not going to be attacked again? And Putin's going to say, well, I can't guarantee anything. They'll say, exactly. Until you can guarantee something, we're going to continue to crush the West, which is exactly what they're doing.
Why Kurdish is saying no to the boots on ground? Is that because they've been always used by the West?
Well, again, it misunderstands the capabilities. If you're going to put troops on the ground, you got to be able to resupply them. How do you do that? So if the Strait of Hormuz is closed, how are you going to actually move troops and then do resupply? If you do it only by air, it's very, very risky.
Right.
And you're not putting in a heavily armed, a unit that's got tanks and Bradley fighting vehicles and artillery that they can, help hold the enemy off. No, you're just with guys with parachutes on their back and rifles, maybe a sidearm or two. That, that's not going to win you anything. That's just cannon fodder.
I don't know if you're aware of the this island called the
Karg.
Yes, Hulk Island. It seems like reports suggest the occupation of the Hulk Island is happening by I'm guessing that's done by U.S. military. Is that true? And is there any risks or what's going on here?
Yeah, well, if they, let's say the United States sends in a bunch of paratroopers to quote take control of the island. How are they going to get resupplied? Because if the Gulf is still closed, no warships are going to come in and do it. And Iran still got drones and still has missiles and can shell that place all day long. No, so it's, that'd be just if that was done, if the West did it, the United States did it, that would be incendiary. It would start off a firestorm among the Arab allies of Iran. So this will be seen as crossing a line. And, the soldiers who are on that island may not ever get off.
I think 90% of the Iranian oil industry, it's they use this Hulk Island, and it seems very important. Well, financially, can Iran suffer this war?
Yeah, I think Iran is going to be getting financial support from China and from Russia. Russia is going to have a lot of money to give us financial support because everybody wants to buy Russian oil now. And Russia says, fine, we'll sell it to you at a premium. If the price is $84, we'll sell it to you for $89. So they'll have plenty of money to share with Iran.
Okay. So what did you think when Supreme Leader Khamenei was assassinated? That was just done suddenly, and I knew this war was coming because of your reporting and so on, but it really surprised me because he is a religious leader.
Well, the one guy, if your goal, as the United States claimed at one point, we got to stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. We got to stop them. So the one guy in Iran that is stopping Iran from building a nuclear weapon is Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. He had issued a religious decree stipulating that it was a sin, it was haram to build and possess a nuclear weapon. So they didn't do it. And who do we decide to kill? We kill the guy that's keeping Iran from getting a nuke. And then on top of it, we kill the father of the new leader. And the new leader is going to exact revenge from the United States for that.
And then now we have the Mojtaba Khamenei was selected as a new supreme leader. Is it true that he has more stronger connection with IRGC, and some people say he used to work for secret police or something?
No, he was with the IRGC. He was served in the
Mm.
army. He fought in the Iran-Iraq War. That's pretty clear. And they say, oh, he's more hardline. Well, I don't know anybody that had affection for their own father. That if you had a chance to fight against the person that killed your father, you'd take it. And that's where he's at. He's now in a position to try to avenge the death of his father. And if that's what makes him a hardliner, then so be it. He's a hardliner in that regard, but nothing that we should fear politically here.
He was his father was killed, his wife and his son was killed, wasn't they?
Yeah, another one of his brothers. So the new Ayatollah, his brother, and his sister-in-law, and his niece.
Niece, yes. Yeah. So as you said, the Supreme Leader Hameh was more moderate.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. But then the son could be more hardliner.
Well, how do we define what makes someone a hardliner? Do you have a definition or not?
I think from the Western point of view, maybe it's an excuse, but they are thinking about the nuclear weapon.
Yeah, so I would say if they're expecting him to come in and impose more restrictions on women and more requirements or demands that women dress in a certain way, you could describe that as a hardliner.
Right.
If he's willing to build a nuke, I'm not sure that's so much hardliner as he's waking up to the reality that as long as Iran does not have a nuke, it's going to be constant risk of being attacked. That's been the lesson of all these several years with the countries that the United States attacks. They don't attack North Korea.
No.
They attack the countries that don't have nuclear weapons.
Yeah, so when it comes to nuclear weapons, this war, I don't know what name we have this for war, this new Iranian war, Western countries, the Israel and the United States is giving more excuse for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree that this attack, surprise attack on the 28th, it was seen as like a sucker punch. You've been invited to somebody's house for dinner and then they try to kill you. That's how it's being viewed with that level of strong emotions. And, the United States and Israel made a terrible miscalculation in my view.
I totally agree. Lots of people think that because of the Epstein documents, that really pushed Trump to start the war.
Right.
What is the main reason, really, why we started this war during the Ramadan?
Because it had been planned for a while, and their polls were telling them that the Ayatollah was weak and that there was a large amount of popular support that would rally to the side of anti-government forces. And so the Trump administration believed that polling without realizing or fully understanding that polling was ultimately paid for by the CIA. And it was the CIA not looking for truth, but the CIA trying to manipulate a situation to get a particular outcome.
What's really happening in CIA? I'd like to understand a bit better about the relationship between the Trump administrations and CIA, because before this administration started, the second Trump administration, lots of people here in Japan, we are basically minor people anyway, but we thought that Trump is trying to destroy whatever the information department, as well as the those intelligence, isn't it? How much influence can Trump have to CIA, and does CIA work separately, like independently, like, because whatever CIA used to do hasn't really stopped, except for USAID type of things.
Yeah, no, I think you're onto something, that the Central Intelligence Agency, by virtue of it's a big bureaucracy and with senior people that can have a big say in the agenda, both shaping the perception of the world and then creating this deliberate perception that inclined to make you think you have a threat, therefore you got to spend a lot of money by giving them money. This is the group, for example, that when in Trump's first term in office, or first year in his second term, he was told to focus on a peace agreement between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Now, remember, he couldn't say Azerbaijan properly. He kept calling it Iberbajan.
Yes.
And then he said, "Oh yeah, they're working with Albania." So he didn't even know what the issues were. He didn't understand that what you were dealing with in Armenia was an ancient Christian culture. What you were dealing with Azerbaijanis was a corrupt government, but it was a government with a large presence of Sunni religious scholars, but they were not fanatical against the ethnic Pashtun or the ethnic Persians. So, it's just you've got all these different groups playing off of one another, and there's no one that's clearly able to dominate. So, but here was Trump getting manipulated by the CIA to say, okay, let's bring the Azeris and Armenians together to sign a peace agreement. He didn't even know what he was signing. That was so. That's why I say there's something or someone else driving this train,
right?
And it's not just Trump. Trump is he's more of a passenger on the train. He does get to sit up front and get to watch, all the beautiful buildings passing by, but he's not the one making all the calls. And he is. We just in the last couple of hours, we're seeing reports that he's intimating that the war is almost over. So he's going to declare victory. Oh, the victory, we win. And then we're going to pull out. Yeah, we showed them. Well, I don't see the Iranians stopping, because the Iranians are not going to stop until Iran gets what it wants. Trump doesn't just get to walk away and say, we win and the Gulf belongs to us. I see that Iran very well could reach out and take further control, actual physical control of the other side of the Persian Gulf.
I think Trump is really seeking the way out, as you and many of you says that this was miscalculation, and I totally agree that it's a mistake that they start this war, even though it's been started. What's going to be the subject for the way out for US and also Iranian? How can we finish this war?
Well, it's real simple. U.S. has to lift sanctions on Iran and remove its military bases from the region. I think those will be at least the two fundamental demands of Iran. They may have a couple of others, but that'll be the start. And so Trump will try to dress that up in a way that he can do it. But if they lift the sanctions on Iran, then the Strait of Hormuz is open. And let's say they open it tomorrow. It's going to take a month now to get the natural gas lines and everything back up and running. So it's just, the damage that has been done there is significant by shutting it down, and it's not going to get restarted in a heartbeat.
Well, I think US and Israel is attacking the oil industry in the Iran.
Mhm.
And I think as a result, we have this. We have we have this black rain
Mhm.
that happened in Tehran in the yesterday morning. Why are they attacking this oil
Well,
infrastructure?
they think they can it'll weaken Iran, and Iran has said, "Hey, you attack our oil, we're going to attack your oil," meaning the other Gulf Arabs. And then they said, "Well, wait, we didn't do this." They say, "You're still allowing the U.S. on your territory. So as long as you allow the U.S. on your territory, we're going to continue to attack you and attack your oil industry." So that's where, it's not enough for the United States just to pull out. It has to really be seriously out of the area.
Does it going to damage Iran eventually?
No, actually, it's ultimately going to benefit Iran. The damage has been done, and the damage will continue to flow. It's not going to stop overnight. But Iran is in a position to try to rebuild itself. And its partnership with both Russia and China are important financial angles that I wouldn't be surprised to see, to see expansion, increased opportunity between Russia, China, and Iran. So that's not going away.
So we have few questions about the schoolgirl attack. I play Trump's.
Did the United States?
Yeah, his denial, his lying denial.
On the first day of the war and kill 175 people.
Based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hickson? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still investigating.
But the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done. We think it was done by Iran. Because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
And then the Alaji.
The strike on the elementary school in southern Iran. It killed more than 170 people, including many children. President Trump said Iran is responsible for that strike. What is your response to what the president said?
Well, it is funny. It is our school. These are our students, our girls, and they are attacked by an American fighter, a jet fighter, and they have been killed. Why Iran is responsible? Have we started this war? Have we attacked our own people? No, we were negotiating with the United States. And in the middle of negotiations, in the middle of diplomacy, they decided to attack us. And they have attacked so many places, including schools and hospitals. And there are all evidences that this school is attacked by an American, jet fighter.
Where is the Iranian evidence that this was a U.S. attack, a jet fighter, as you say? Will you provide
If it was not U.S., then who was that? Maybe Israelis. But it is obvious who else is attacking us.
So what really happened?
Well, yeah, it's very simple. There's a still photograph of the missile that hit the school. It was a Tomahawk missile. Only the United States is firing Tomahawk missiles, not the Iranians and not the Israelis. That was done by the United States. Now, there is no doubt about that. They're just lying. They're trying to, keep denying, delaying, obfuscating, and hoping that at some point it goes away.
Well, some people believe that it was the IRGC misconduct at the beginning, but now it's been
it's
Al
not.
Jazeera.
Go ahead.
No, the Al Jazeera report clearly shows that it was a misconduct by US, maybe because they use the AI, artificial intelligence. How much do we have those technology used on this war, as we use a lot of those technologies in the Gaza war?
Whenever you're using technology, you still need to have a fallback system to double check that even the recommendations of technology are correct. I spent 23 years working with the U.S. military special operations forces. And in scripting those exercises, I saw time and time again when people relied on computers and then the information later turned out to be wrong. So this doesn't surprise me at all.
Right. We learn from you that U.S. military has been weakened than we imagined. And I'd like to know how weak are they? Because, whenever I insist that U.S. Army is not as strong as we used to imagine. And, would you be able to explain that to my viewers?
Well, so let's start with numbers. The United States Army is at one of its lowest levels in history. So the last 100 years anyway, particularly since the end of World War II. So to deploy and have to, let's say Russia has an army of 1.5 million. United States' army got 472,000. We're outnumbered there. We're outnumbered in other locations. In fact, we're outnumbered by Iran. So it's not just a matter of personnel, it's a matter of equipment. We've expended and had a lot of equipment destroyed during the battles, both in Israel, going back to the 73 Yom Kippur War, and then as we continue we went to Afghanistan. We left them with one of the strongest armies in the region in terms of equipment. We've shed a lot of that equipment, M1A Abrams, Bradley fighting vehicles in Ukraine. So the United States doesn't have unlimited resources. Our air defense missile systems are, running out of missiles. Not that it makes any difference because they've been proven pretty inadequate. So it's like they're not working. Well, okay, you're saving some money. So it's just, United States, the one thing it has over all other countries, it's got the most expensive military in the world. It's not the best, but it is the most expensive.
It's not very efficient.
Correct.
So according to your report, there was an article by was it Washington Post? I forgot. Wall Street Journal, I forgot. So Tulsi Gabbard, what is she thinking now?
Well, I think we're looking at the fact that there was a leak to the Washington Post on Sunday. And in that leak, they basically, the intelligence community saying, we told Donald Trump not to launch this attack on Iran. He ignored us. That's essentially the message. And in saying that, they're laying out the case that they believe the war is going badly, that Trump is going to lose it, and they don't want to be on the losing side. They're getting out now saying, hey, we told him it's not our fault. He just ignored us.
Who Donald Trump is listening to then? Is he only listening to the Netanyahu?
Yeah, Netanyahu, the wife of Sheldon Adelson, she's got $250 billion into him, so he listens to her. He doesn't listen to, we know that Tucker Carlson tried to talk him out of it, but he wouldn't listen to Tucker. So he's listening to Susie Wiles, and I think he's listening to Pam Bondi. So it's all the members of his administration who are staunch supporters of the Zionist cause.
Well, I know the Iranian government for a long time, they are against Zionism. Only recently, because since 2023, the Hamas attack, that in Japan we realized that there is Zionist in the world that obviously some people were really aware of, but normal people we just happen to know that there is those ideology. What are they really fighting for, like between Iran and Israel?
Well, Iran is fighting to defend itself. Think of yourself, you're a young woman, you're walking to a restaurant from your home, and on the way to there, you're attacked. A man jumps out to attack you, and then you fight back and viciously beat him. You're not the criminal here. You were the victim, and you fought back against somebody who tried to hurt you. That's exactly what Iran is doing right now to Israel and the United States. They launched that attack with the express purpose of killing all the leadership, decapitating the top level of politicians and generals, and then wanted to bring in their own people from Kurdistan and from the Mech, who they've kept bottled up in Albania, and then put them in there and let them take over, along with the Shah, the son of the Shah.
Yeah. Before this war was started, I think Ayatollah Khamenei was giving a lot that it's going to be a regional war. And well, obviously it's like this is the fifth Middle Eastern war. How is it affecting those Gulf, GCC, and also those regions? And I have a question. What's Hezbollah doing right now, and what's going on in those regions? And
well, let's see, today's 9, 8, 7, 6. On Thursday, the 5th, the GCC ambassadors, the ambassadors in Moscow representing the GCC countries came together for a meeting with Vladimir Putin.
Right.
And the purpose was, they're supposed to talk about Ukraine, but the real purpose was to try to pressure Moscow to getting intervention with Iran to stop attacking Israel and to stop attacking the Gulf states. And Lavrov was very, he really put on a masterful display of diplomacy and leadership. And he told him, so listen, first let's start with expressing deepest condolences to all of you who suffered losses, etc. But then he pivoted. But you know what? It wasn't Israel. It was Israel and the United States that attacked Iran and indirectly attacked you. Because until Iran wasn't attacking anybody. And they look around and go, oh, yeah. Then he said, hey, how many of you condemned the actions of the United States and Israel? Not a one. He asked, how many of you condemned the murder of those 170 little girls? Not a one. So he said, look, we're not going to play favorites here. You guys are wanting to play favorites. We're not going to put up with that for a minute. You decide. So from that standpoint, it sort of freed the GCC from being so totally dependent upon the West. We'll see what happens going forward, but I think the Russians sent a very strong message to say, look, if you're just going to play favorites with one side, you're going to have problems with us. And they said, oh, we don't want that.
Actually, your report every day, the Substack, that's Sona 21, the message is really helping me a lot, because that's just before, maybe a few hours before I start my live stream, and I always talk about your report. And then on that same report, you were talking about the Modi, President Modi of India, and BRICS is being created, and their original members. And since 2022, because of the Russian special military operations, they invited Iran, I think, to the Middle Eastern countries. And Saudi Arabia is not really joining properly yet. They are pending the response.
Right.
It's going to affect the BRICS, this war, and maybe the Ukraine-Russian war as well.
Well, it's going to end up weakening West. Let's start with the war in Ukraine. It's going to weaken Western support for Ukraine, putting Ukraine more on the backwater and strengthening Russian resolve to defeat them militarily. So Russia's not facing the kind of pressure it was internationally when that was the sole battle going on. Modi, boy, I'm sure there've been some movies made about what he did. It's like Modi. Let's think of Modi as a kid in school trying to figure out how to navigate his way, and he decides he wants to go be best friends with the school bully. Now, there's another student at the school. He's a good kid, well balanced, but the perception he's poor. We don't really have to worry about him. Well, so Modi goes to Israel and signs security agreements and he's talking at great length about how wonderful the Israelis are. Again, this is 2 days before Israel attacks Iran, and is implying that he's really going to be closer friends and have a better relationship with Israel than with the BRICS countries. Now, up to this point, India had been playing a double game with the United States. You tell the U.S., "Oh yeah, we're gonna stop buying that Russian oil," and then tell the Russians, "Hey, we're under pressure to stop buying your oil. Can you give it to us at a discount and we'll keep buying?" And Russia said, "Oh, okay." So India is playing both sides of this, but he was clearly seen as on the side of Israel and not Iran, a fellow BRICS country. Then came the attacks on the 28th, and then the shutdown of the oil by the IRGC. The Persian Gulf is closed at the Strait of Hormuz. Well, that's now a big problem for Modi because they get over 80% of their oil. Now, in the past, he had convinced the Russians to sell him oil at a discount. But here's Russia watching his behavior in Israel. And then to my knowledge, I don't think Modi came out and condemned the U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran. And so all of a sudden they're not getting any more oil out of the Persian Gulf. They got 80% of their country demands it. What does he do? Well, he goes back to Russia. And the Russians, they weren't gonna use this to be vicious to him. They don't want to completely humiliate him, but they did say, "Hey, by the way, this is before we gave you oil at $5 a barrel discount, and from a price of $59. Well, boy, market's taken off. So all we can do is offer you this price, and the price they offer is like $5 above the base price for the crude." So all of a sudden, the Russians are saving Modi's bacon, but they're doing it at a price. He's paying almost twice as much the money that he was before.
Well, I wonder if Modi have heard from Netanyahu that they are going to make another attack because he was there just before the attack started.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question on the it's in Japanese, but from my viewers that so Americans are insisting that their missile attack accuracy is very good, and they would like to know that is it true, and also both sides, American side, Iranian side, how are they doing with regards to those missile?
How is who doing?
The American and also Iranian. According to media report, the Americans are doing really well with the missile attack. And how is it affecting to Iranian side?
Well, the United States. Look, the U.S. propaganda about how well it's doing is very typical of past wars. So you always have to take those with a lot of doubt or a big grain of salt, which means you're not quite sure it's true. Notice their propaganda is insisting that Iran's running out of missiles. It's not. The United States has been able to drop quite a few bombs, guided, their air-to-ground missiles dropped from aircraft. They've been able to do quite a few of those against Iran, but it's not been devastating as Trump proclaims. Now, I'm hoping that Trump's emphasis now on the devastation is merely a signal by him that we're going to declare victory and leave. So that'll be a good first step. But unless he does that, leaving Israel there to continue carrying out attacks, and Iran will continue to blow Israel, Haifa, and Tel Aviv to smithereens. So, there's neither side. The U.S. does not have the military strength through air power alone to compel a regime change in Iran. Iran does have sufficient missiles that they can make Israel come to a point of pleading, begging for the war to be over.
Two things that, as I said, we have former Defense Forces intelligence. His name is called Yano Sensei. Well, he told me that Iranian do have enough missiles to actually be able to destroy Israel itself, at least Tel Aviv. Also, there is a possibility maybe it's going to be able to destroy American mothership on a region, Abraham Lincoln, that ship. What's your view on that?
Well, we don't really have a good story, and the fact that we don't have a good story tells me that Iran did hit the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier with some missiles and or drones, and it suffered some damage. I think that's true.
Also, well, American side also destroyed the Iranian ships. Is there any ships that they've got left?
Well, I'm sure there are.
Okay.
But the ships, the ships aren't playing a critical role in any of this right now, including the shutter, closing the Strait of Hormuz.
Right.
It's just the threat of violence, and the threat of violence is not from ships; it's from ship-to-shore missiles and drones.
I'm going to move on to Russia-Ukraine war. I have my channel ally in the X group called, they always talk about the Russian issue. I've got a question from Aki. She also deeply appreciate your information. Recently, since the war between Iran and the US, Israel began, it seems that reporting and discussion about Russia have become less frequent than before.
Right.
Before the war with Iran began, Japanese media often reported that Ukraine is winning, which is a false, but Ukraine is recapturing territory and that Russia is abducting the Ukrainian children. So first, there's two questions. How do you assess the current situation on the battlefield between Russia and Ukraine? The second one is the Through the course of this special military operation, how do you think Russia has changed compared with the period before the conflict? In particular, how would you evaluate Russia's military technology and military capabilities today, especially in comparison with those of the United States?
Yeah, right now, I would say in the world, Russia has the strongest military in the world, strongest in terms of combat capability, much stronger than the United States. At least ground forces is what we're talking about here. We've got actual evidence of how badly Ukraine is suffering in the course of this special military operation. Starting in January of 2025, a year ago, more than a year ago, and as recently as February of 2026, the Russians and the Ukrainians have been exchanging the bodies of dead soldiers. On average, Russia, for every one dead Russian that is returned to Russia, Russia is returning 36 to 38 dead Ukrainians. That's how many are getting killed. And the Ukrainians could argue, well, that's because Russia's advances are moving so fast, we don't have time to recover our bodies. Well, if that's the case, how do you argue that it's been Ukraine advancing and not Russia, if that was the reason? But that's not the reason. The reason is Russia is winning. It's winning decisively. And Ukraine's collapse is inevitable. It's just a matter of time. But what Russia has avoided doing is acting like the Israelis and the United States. Russia has not killed 170 young schoolgirls or children. That's not what Russia does. That is something that the West, unfortunately, does. We're great killers and murderers of innocents, of civilians.
Okay, so I was in the Baltic regions last year. I was in the Lithuania and Latvia. I go there for some holidays because I'm from UK. Also, I live here now. That there is huge propaganda that I feel, on the eastern side and western side of the Russia to become anti-Russia. Now, from your perspective, considering current Western policy toward Japan and the growing discussion about possible Taiwan contingency, do you think Japan is gradually being reshaped into military state again, effectively as a proxy force against China?
Yeah. Has Japan learned nothing from World War II? There was a reason you militarize and the military led you to disaster. And China suffered at the hands of the Japanese millions killed. And those wounds have not healed in Japan. In China. So, if Japan foolishly makes a bid to try to rebuild and become, the military equivalent of what it was back in 1939, that's going to be a problem because China is not going to sit around and let that happen. That is seen as a danger, as well as Russia will probably be involved if there's an attempt to expand, and go back, even acquire nuclear weapons.
Well, nobody really mentioned, even though Iranian is being supported by China. And is there any side of this, this Iranian war that's happening right now is kind of proxy war of China between US and Israel?
Yeah, to an extent. China is helping Iran, and it gives Chinese a chance to test some of their military equipment to see if it actually works as advertised. Is it as good as they claim or not? So we don't have an idea. On the surface, it appears that the air defense system supplied by China, allegedly, has not worked out. Now, I'd like a lot more information to know why was that? What were the problems? Or was it actually ever implemented? I just don't know.
Okay. Well, we have two neighbors country, Russia and China, who has a nuclear weapon, and we have to really in a difficult situation. Especially we have this new prime minister called Takaichi, and she recently met Peter Thiel from Palantir.
Yes.
Yeah. Should we feel any fear about that?
I would. If you've watched the movie Terminator, that was considered science fiction 40 years ago. It's becoming reality now through people like Peter Thiel.
Well, yeah, North Korea as well. They
Yeah.
have a nuclear weapon. Well, as Takaka also mentioned about the possibility of using the nuclear weapon between the Iran and maybe Israel, maybe even in Russia actually. Also, he was mentioning about the Al-Aqsa Mosque. They might destroy it.
Yes.
What's your view? Because if they have, I'm quite surprised that actually those Islamic countries, other than Iran, I know there's a Fushi and Shia, even though they are not as angry as they should be, I thought, because of this attack.
Well, I think the average Japanese does not. They've got to look with complete puzzlement at the West when it comes to these talks about Al-Aqsa Mosque, the return of Jesus, or the return of the Prophet, or the rise of the Messiah. Both Judaism and Christianity and Islam have some similar and some very different views on the end of the world, but it's usually caught up in a notion that Jesus, who was crucified and the Christians believe was resurrected from the dead, is going to return, and people will see him in the sky. And the Jews believe that before the Messiah comes, they have to rebuild the third temple. So they're going to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and build a new temple on top of that, then sacrifice a red heifer, and voila, the Messiah will come back. Yeah, this is, I'm sure this is just not part of Japanese culture. You got to look at it and say, what are these crazy Westerners talking about?
Yeah, but we learned a lot this few years about those religious stuff, and that really supplies those people to. Well, they think because we believe in many gods rather than just one god.
Yeah.
So I think, Japan is one of the countries that we could unite the world, even though our government doesn't really realize that. That's really a shame.
Yeah, I'm fascinated. I'd love to get together with a group of people from people that have no exposure at all to a Christian culture, to understand how they grow up seeing the world and how they conceptualize it. Because within the Christian culture, there's very much this notion that there's an end of the world time. And some of the more extreme believers think that they can actually manipulate current events to create that end of the world. That's one of the dangers.
Yes, thank you. I think time is coming up for you. Thank you very much for joining my channel and sharing your views and your everyday work that we really appreciate it. I'm hoping that I can invite you again to my channel.
Oh, I'd be happy to appear. It's been a great honor to be with you, and I thank you for your courtesy.
Thank you very much. Then I will end the video now.
Okay.
Yes,
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
It's all just like